It's Friday, December 1st. Let's talk PlayStation. Alright, we actually have PlayStation news to discuss this time. So, let's get into some firmware updates. PlayStation Vita actually got a firmware update, 3.67. Nothing in particular as far as I know. This probably covers up some exploits that are currently available on Vita or something. Just one of those usual does-nothing firmware updates. Probably improves the stability of the Vita, which is always good stuff. I know we feel a little bit more secure when we get updates like that. Now, in relation to last week's episode, we were talking about how, hey, where the PS2 Classics, specifically the Jack games that they were saying they would bring over to PlayStation 4 at some point. Well, now it turns out, actually on the PlayStation Store, there was a surprise, like, banner listing for, like, a bundle that they're going to be doing. So Jack 1, 2, 3, and Jack X Combat Racing. But if you were to follow the link, it actually doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't, you know, all the games aren't available just yet. But this probably tells us that it is finally close to actually being released, which is good. So, we were just saying, like, hey, where are these games? Well, now they're probably right around the corner. Who knows when they'll actually get released. Moving on, Sony's head of PlayStation Network, Eric Lempel, was recently speaking to CNBC about their Black Friday sales, and actually said that this latest Black Friday was the best Black Friday in the 22 years of PlayStation history. This is particularly noteworthy only because PlayStation 4, a little bit into its life cycle. We do have a mid-cycle update with PS4 Pro, but we also have PlayStation VR, which plays a pretty integral role in the future of PlayStation, presumably. We all know that Sony is making a big bet on VR. But also, there was some great deals, actually. I mean, honestly, it was probably a really good time to get into a PlayStation 4 or even an Xbox One. There were a lot of great deals everywhere, but specifically on the PlayStation side, you had a $200 entry point for a PS4. Many retailers were offering more stuff with that $200 PS4. PlayStation VR was, good lord, $200 I think was the lowest I saw it, and then a lot of these bundles that were even coming with Move controllers and games. I mean, that Skyrim bundle was down to $350. I know PS4 Pro had somewhat I think the lowest I saw that was like $350, but even that's a good deal if you were in the market for a Pro anyway. But yeah, $200 for a PS4, not a bad deal. So I'm not surprised at all that this was very strong for them. And more importantly, this will be some very nice earnings for Sony at the end of the year once they finally finish and all systems are, say, accounted for, because the holidays are where a vast majority of systems are going to be sold for the ending quarter, so they're going to be in a pretty good spot for sure if they did that well. Now moving on, Sony's Senior Vice President of Worldwide Studios, Michael Denny, was talking to VG247 about new IPs, specifically mentioning that Sony will constantly back new IPs, new AAA IPs. He actually had this interesting quote I'd like to share with you all. He said, "It's interesting that at this stage in the life cycle, we've got big new triple IPs to come with Ghost of Tsushima and games like Days Gone as well. We'll always back new IP, but what we will say is, well, we're going to be smart about how we develop those games and make sure we have a strong pre-production process and really prove out the key elements of those games along the way. But doing new IPs and trying to create new genres is something we'll always back." Now hearing this statement, it certainly rings true. I mean, there's absolutely no denying it. Sony takes a lot of chances on new IP. And they definitely do play it safe, too, with a lot of their IP. But the funny thing, too, is that they do a little bit of both, right? They spread, I think they kind of lay out their cards a little evenly when it comes to these kind of things, because they will keep one IP going that is say very strong, right? Like Uncharted, for example. That is a very strong brand. It's a good name. They released a lot of Uncharted games, or whether they were big or whether they were small, like Fight for Fortune on like PlayStation Vita. Some people don't even realize there's an Uncharted card game on PlayStation Vita. But they take a name and they do a lot with it. The other side of things is that they will finally have a developer say, well, that's the thing too, is that they actually let a lot of their developers really do what they want at their own expense, at their own exposure, at their own, rate of however they want to go about it. Media Molecule, of course, being one big example. They've been taking a lot of time with Dreams, and that's a game that I still don't see being super financially viable considering how long they've been developing that game, and it just doesn't look like a mass market kind of game. But that's just like what Sony does with a lot of their stuff, whether it's big or small. The other thing that I think of also is, and this is, good lord, I don't know when he said it was probably like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. Famous game developer Cliff Bleszinski was saying that, nowadays in the landscape of the video game industry, you have to be either an Activision, a Blizzard, a Ubisoft, or a Sony. He specifically says, or a Sony, to make AAA new IPs like that, or big, I forget exactly what he said, maybe linear single-player games or something, but of course that still rings true for this this discussion as well. Because if you look back, say, 15 years ago, you know, a lot of developers were around, a lot of publishers were around, and now you look at today, and there's really not a whole lot left. And Sony is in that position. They are one of the very few publishers that will really take chances with this stuff. And of course, these are big multi-million-dollar projects, so it's nice to have them here. And that's the thing too, like Sony plays a little bit of an important role here, especially because so many people are worried about like losing these experiences and losing new IPs and not having publishers take big chances to give us, you know, ideas that we haven't seen before, new genres, new storylines, new tackling new subjects that games may not have necessarily done before. I am happy that Sony is in that place. At the same time, I also wish other publishers would be a bit more aggressive with this. Now, Ubisoft actually does a lot too as well. I'll certainly give them credit. I would love to see Microsoft do a little bit more. They've certainly been lacking in that area. And of course, EA has entirely separate beast, entirely separate video of its own for a lot of their inconsistencies, but you know, it's important. Like, new IP breathes so much fresh air into this industry, and so at the very least, thank God that Sony is doubling down on that commitment, which is that they will keep doing it for as long as it stays a little bit sustainable, which is something that also Michael Denny touched on, that, you know, they want to keep doing this, but they also have to look at it in a viable manner of how they can keep doing it and if it is going to play out well for them. And sure enough, time and time again, as they release these great games, they do end up doing very well, which is great. You know, as a consumer, you have the buying power. You hate something like loot boxes, yell about them, don't purchase them. Something, you know, will possibly change from that, much like when online passes died. And at the same time, buckle down, invest the full $60 that you may not want to spend on a really exciting new idea that, you know, intrigues you. That's the harsh reality of it. I know the value of games seems to have been lost on a lot of people, but considering inflation is a thing, and games have stayed relatively the same price for quite a while, you know, vote with your wallet. And for our final news story, we will end off with a rumor. So keep that in mind, rumor. But this is a source coming from Reset Era. And this rumor has been picking up a decent amount of steam, so I thought it'd be worthy to talk about, especially given Sony's recent history the past, like, 2 or 3 years when it comes to third-party stuff and getting a third-party exclusive. But the rumor currently is that Devil May Cry 5 will be announced at some point. Right now the rumor is saying E3 2018. Whereas, actually, earlier rumors about this was actually that it was going to be at PSX to be announced, you know, in literally a week, almost. But that has been delayed. Devil May Cry 5, they're saying it's going to take place right after, you know, keep continuing the story of 4 and whatnot. That's all well and good. The actual deal of the game, though, is that it seems like details are a little hazy. Excuse me. From what we're being told right now is that the game will be a console exclusive on PlayStation 4 and released on PC afterwards. Whereas I believe also prior allegations to this was that we weren't really sure what it was going to be, whether it would have some sort of PlayStation 4 exclusivity, whether that was content or timed exclusivity or console exclusivity, but now it appears to be it will be a console exclusive. And part of this is apparently that Sony is funding development of the game in conjunction with Capcom. So you would have to figure that there would certainly be a heavy associated deal to keep that game in some sort of exclusive rights. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sony has done this throughout most of the PlayStation 4 lifecycle, doing third-party exclusives, and it typically is because they're either heavily involved in funding or heavily involved in the marketing aspect of it. But if this is to be a real thing, if this is to be true, if this is something that we will see at 2018 E3, which that's the thing too. You know, you read a lot of rumors online, and I think, that's, you know, BS. I'm not going to talk about that on Let's Talk PlayStation, because I'm not going to go for that dumb exposure or clearly something that's not going to happen just so I can use it as clickbait. I don't do any shit like that. But I see something like this, and I think, you know what, this very much. Not only are there a lot of you know, it seems like this rumor is picking up a lot of steam, but this is very believable. I could certainly see this happening. It just seems like a Sony move nowadays, and let's face it, this would be a pretty big net for the company if they secure this game. It's very, you know, this is a big game for a lot of people. People love Devil May Cry. So, assuming the game actually gets shown off 2018 and actually looks very good and looks very compelling, this will just be another way for Sony to move a lot more units. So there's really not much more to say until we actually get to E3 2018, or if we get more leaks and information regarding it. But as of right now, rumor. Those are some of the news stories I want to talk with you guys this week. I'm sorry there was no Let's Play. I am actually currently working on a review for Skyrim VR. The only reason why it's taking me so long is that it's Skyrim and it's a long game. I want to thoroughly... the damn thing is, I know I don't have to play through all of Skyrim again to get a review up, but I still want to play a decent chunk of it in virtual reality to at least get a final feel for it, but it should be coming relatively soon. I can't actually even promise if we'll have another knack part this coming Monday. Just been so busy, especially with the holidays. I'm working a lot, so I can make that money, and I can buy gifts for people, and then I gotta go shopping for people, so you know how it is. But thank you for your patience, and the Skyrim VR review should be up relatively soon. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Beeeeeeep. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.